keep an eye on the chat. Keep an eye on the chat for us as well. So, good day, everyone. Welcome to Healthy Mind, Healthy Woman. I'm honored to be presenting this webinar today as part of the Mothers to Daughters Mentorship Enterprise. Since retiring from a 32-year successful career in the Federal Public Service of Canada, I've been lucky enough to spend the last couple of years volunteering for Mothers to Daughters, specifically as a mentor. And it's really brought a lot of joy and purpose to my retirement, or what I call my happyment phase of life. Thank you for taking the time out today to listen and hopefully glean some of my life experiences that I'd like to share on a few topics that new and emerging professionals may face in their personal and specifically professional lives, such as handling difficult conversations, building resilience, and other healthy practices. My goal over the course of this workshop is to share with you some of my lived experiences and discuss leadership lessons with a focus on maintaining a well-being approach. I do encourage you to use the chat. Again, Sandra will be monitoring that. I did leave some time at the end to answer questions in case you didn't make it into the chat. So I encourage and welcome all feedback and interaction. This is your workshop. So before we begin, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement and commitment. I open by respectfully acknowledging that I reside in Ontario, Canada, on the ancestral and treaty lands whose enduring stewardship informs my work today. The lands are the Anishinaabe-Waukee, the Wendake Neo-Wensio, Haudenosaunee nations, and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The wheatgrass, the white birch tree, is a symbol of a living teacher. But this white birch tree that you see pictured here is growing behind my own home and reflects its sacred role to the Anishinaabe as a tree of life, used for canoes, scrolls, and medicine. Like this pioneer species, which regenerates after fire or storms, I see that the Mothers to Daughters Generations in Mentoring program, which I volunteer as a mentor, honors three teachings. It's rooted in truth, by recognizing matriarchal leadership as the original model for intergenerational mentorship, growth through reciprocity, like the birch forests that sustain entire ecosystems. I aim to nurture mutual growth between myself as a mentor and my mentees. And three, resilient networks, honoring how the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee women have woven kinship and knowledge sharing for millennia. And just as the birch bark adapts yet endures, I strive to shed what no longer serves, like the tree's peeling bark, to create space for new beginnings. Honor the resilient networks of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee women. And lastly, draw strength from deep roots and nurture mutual growth. Before we dive in, I'd love to get a quick pulse check from everyone in attendance. I've prepared a very short list of topics where you might wish to focus our attention on the topic of healthy mind, healthy woman. This will help shape how we approach the discussion and where to put some emphasis. Please, I welcome you to join in by selecting an option and writing it in the chat. I'll give you maybe a couple of seconds to respond. And then Sandra, you can look at the results and let me know what topics we have here that people are most interested in. I will cover each of these topics. Just want to get a pulse check on where you'd like us to put a focus. So handling difficult conversations, A. B, building resilience. C, tips to thrive as a leader. D, self-care practices. E, creating a strong support system. And E, F, all of the above. And you can simply put in the letter as a quick way to do that. Sandra, I'll leave it to you to let me know when we have some results.
All right, we got them coming in right now. And it looks like a gamut of all of them, but I'm going to see which one gets the most attention.
Sure.
All right, so let's see. We got 1 C, 2 A's, F, E, two E's, B and C. So everything.
Everything.
Um,
Okay. I'm not surprised though that handling difficult conversations is a top one. I will cover each of these. I did spend the most time on this first one because I have found it to be in my long career to be a linchpin in achieving my personal best. So, if in my personal and professional lives I can manage to handle difficult conversations, you can pretty much handle anything. So, again, not surprised, and we'll just dive right in then. Okay, let's talk about handling difficult conversations. So again, I'm summarizing here what is probably one of the most written about topics and continues to be one of the most sought after skills. And I've achieved this list of 4 C's from my all my training. I've attended alternative dispute resolution training and a number of other management trainings over the years, as well as through university in and achieved a number of practical experiences as well. So I boiled it down into the 4 C's. The first C is cooperation. No surprise that cooperation involves feeling understood and respected. Cooperation, in the sense of handling difficult conversations, must focus on the problem and finding common ground. Think of it as working with and not competing against one another to achieve a common goal. It's voluntary and never forced and requires shared influence and respect. It can embrace different perspectives on the journey to the shared goal. So, again, cooperation is the first C and not competition. Number 2, the adopting a calm, civil tone. I think this is one that is becoming more and more challenging as um, tempers seem to be flaring up very quickly in today's environment. So, really learning that self management skill of maintaining a calm, civil, neutral tone. Is the key, both from my training and from my personal experiences, to setting a foundation for effective difficult interactions. 2 examples, concrete examples of what does this look like. The first would be empathetic language. Empathy can be learned. It does not have to be innate, although those who have it innately are very lucky. There are, again, ways to train yourself on adopting empathetic language. But in a nutshell, this is a learned skill that starts with understanding what someone else is feeling first and foremost, and then reflecting that feeling back to them so that they know you've understood and been able to articulate that. The second example of a calm, civil, neutral tone would be, let's say you have to schedule this conversation. Making sure that you pick a time and a venue for the conversation that both parties can agree to in advance is very critical. You'd be surprised how often this simple step is overlooked, and how that can cause it to go off on a not so positive start. The third C is effective interactive communication. Again, a topic that's been much written about, much maligned, often misunderstood. What I mean by communication in this context is making sure that you prepare some open ended questions that cannot be answered with a yes or a no. These open ended questions can be a powerful tool because they require a thoughtful, longer answer, which in turn can promote increased communication and understanding, and at the same time diffuse negative emotions. I'll give you an example. So, an example of a yes or no question would be, do you like this service? Versus an open ended question, which would be, what do you find most useful about our service? That would require a descriptive answer, and that descriptive answer would lead to then more communication and more elaboration. Again, so just to summarize that, it's communication via open-ended questions. The last C is, again, a summary of much training that you could take. There's a lot of resources and a lot of training on this. The way I would summarize this would be to focus on common interests, not positions, and to brainstorm cooperatively to find creative and fair options using objective criteria. So let me break it down a little bit. So first of all, a little bit of this interest-based negotiation would start with describing the shared or common interests that exist in the issue at hand. It is also important to avoid jumping and selling a specific solution. So I would suggest don't even talk about solutions. Just focus on what's my interest in this problem. Secondly, I would say the single biggest thing to avoid would be avoid attributing this problem to a specific person. Very tempting to say that person is the problem, as opposed to sticking to the facts of the problem at hand. For example, if you're giving feedback to someone you deem a difficult person, you could, as a suggestion, first reframe this as a problem related to behaviors that that person is expressing that can lead to a specific consequence, and not necessarily blame the person. So again, there are many resources, tools from past training. One that I particularly like, which I'll share later, is the acronym DESC, DESC. That's an acronym. The acronym stands for, first, describe the behavior to the other person. The E is for express your feelings. The S is you can specify what your preferred outcome can be. And C, commitment and consequences should this preferred outcome occur. So tools such as DESC, DESC, and other tools, there are many out there and resources, can lead to interactions that can break down the problem while maintaining respect and long-term relationships with the other person. Now, that was a lot. And again, if there's any questions in the chat, feel free to drop them in, and Sandra can interrupt me at any point, although I did leave time at the end to maybe delve deeper into some of these items. Okay. Moving on to building resilience. I'm going to use an analogy of an athlete. And I'm going to encourage you in your career specifically to start thinking of yourself as a corporate athlete. Think of what athletes in the professional world are like. And we admire athletes all the time. They have motivation, they have talent, they have strength, they have training, they have mental resilience. Just like athletes, we in the professional world have had to pay attention to these, as well as proper nutritious sleep and balancing physical and mental exercise. Now, part of having an athletic mindset, and this is a challenging one, I think, outside of this sphere, is to accept feedback and correction as a gift. How many of you right now can think of a time where you received feedback and actually thanked the person and said, I welcome that feedback, thank you so much, as opposed to what the normal reaction would be is to think of it as immediately feeling attacked, criticized, and wishing to defend yourself. So if you can get to a state where you do not feel the need to defend yourself and accept that feedback and reflect on that feedback as a gift that someone is giving you so that they want to see you improve, it's really, again, just like an athletic coach wants to help develop the skills of their players. And that's the reason you're getting that feedback to begin with. The third aspect that I've learned about in my career that really was a game changer for me, speaking of sports, is to really strive for excellence and not perfectionism. This was a long time coming, and it was, again, the result of feedback and self-reflection, which led to a new standard of success, leading in my career to much more successful strategic initiatives once I focused on striving for excellence versus perfectionism. I learned it was okay to accept what in my mind was less than an A. You know, it was okay to be a B minus, if that meant it was realistic, balanced, and a healthy goal to achieve, rather than that perfect A that costs you your peace of mind and anything else that's negative to your health and well-being. Enjoying this led to enjoying what I did. I felt good about what I learned. It helped develop my confidence to the point that I achieved a whole level of a higher maximal state of performance and flow. Last but not least, and this is a key one, is I learned through past experience that it is a sign of strength to ask for help, such as, and that can come from any corner, such as consulting key stakeholders early and often to achieve positive outcomes and goals, whether that's your manager, your peers, or those in key positions who are enabling success for you. Asking for help sometimes means accessing both mental health resources as well as leadership tools, leadership training, and it can also be as simple as giving yourself permission to take a break, take a walk, and reflect. Okay, so I'll pause there, Sandra, in case there's anything in the chat that you want to
Yeah.
highlight.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll
Excuse
continue.
me. Sorry. Uh, um, from our participants if they have any specific time where they welcomed feedback. Going back to your question, Anna, is there any moment that rings um, comes to mind for anyone on the call?
And usually this happens during performance review time too, for those people on the call who've ever been part of a performance management discussion. That's normally when
Oh,
one receives feedback.
yeah. Oh, we got a comment here. It says, I really like the strive for excellence, not perfection. I do think that's a really fun.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome.
yeah, so we can definitely, but it can be difficult to see it while in, oh, and then followed up with, but it can be difficult to see it while in real time. That is completely true. Um,
Absolutely. And
Thank you so much.
absolutely. Hmm. It is all, I mean, hindsight, that's why they say hindsight is 2020, because none of these learnings that I'm sharing with you today, although I'm presenting them to you in a calm fashion and summarized and neatly packaged, when I was actually going through them, my insides, were a bundle of emotions. I had to really exercise a lot of, I would say, maturity and self control to really listen and understand what the person was telling me and not react right away. I think the key is when you're going through it in real time is, I mean, for me, it has been not to react right away, to just say, okay, I'm going to give this some thought and I'll get back to you. Because more often than not, you give yourself 24 hours or even longer. You check in with yourself, you check in with others, and you realize that that person is really trying to help you and support you. And that's what support looks like. Support doesn't look like always getting a pat on the back and a thank you. Support in my career has been hearing the tough advice and the difficult feedback, and that's what's helped me to grow. So definitely acknowledge the point that not easy to hear in real time, and I have lived that experience, so I understand and agree completely. Again, I could spend a whole session just on this topic alone, but I just tried to summarize the four key aspects that for me are really significant in changing your path from, getting into a victim mindset versus taking control and really looking at things with emotional intelligence. Okay, I'll move on to the next topic, my tips to thrive as a leader. And some of you on the call might say, I'm not a leader. I'm not in a leadership position. I call that capital L leader. When I was developing in my career, I wasn't always a capital L leader in a management position with that title. Um, anyone can be what I call a small L leader by volunteering to take an initiative on coming up with a new idea or heading up a committee. Anyone can be a small L leader in any role. So I'd like to think of this as for small L leaders who show initiative on a daily basis, and for big L leaders who are sitting in that management role or who aspire to be in that management role. Maybe these tips will help you to, get off to a great start. I wish I had some of them, to be honest, before I became a capital L leader. So the first one is, and this is again born out of a real experience, because I think many of us get promoted or achieve success because we're used to achieving things on our own, but when you get to a certain level of leadership, you need to realize that you're part of a greater team. At some point, you hit a wall where you cannot do things on your own anymore. You need to engage. You need to engage your team members, whether they're your peers, whether they're the management team, whether they're your employees who report to you. And what does a team look like? A team, you'll know when you're part of a greater team if you share a common cause, you set goals together, you assign duties together that helps everyone and contributes to the overall cause. You have a shared ownership on how things get done. You recognize everyone's efforts through, achievement and recognition, public recognition, and continuous learning and process improvement together. So that's just a few ways that you can recognize, am I part of a team, or am I just working alongside a group of people independently? Okay, so that's a very important distinction. Number two, tips to thrive as a leader: always create something new. As having spent most of my career in management and my beginning years not in management, one of my key leadership competencies has been to identify opportunities for and barriers to innovation and to propose creative approaches. This is also known as honing one's entrepreneurial spirit and can be developed whether you're an employee or whether you're self-employed. So having this entrepreneurial spirit is very critical to be innovative in whatever role you're in. For example, finding new ways to innovate a work process, or finding ways to enhance efficiency in your team, shave off some time, improve quality. My tagline for anyone who's learning is, you also have to keep in mind that you do have to give yourself time to learn, because the first year in any job, you're learning. The second year, you're actually doing the job, and then in the third year, you can get creative and start playing with ways to innovate. And the last aspect to creating something new is you need to hone your strategic and critical thinking skills, which involves being resourceful, curious, and start thinking about who you're serving. Who's your client? Who is benefiting from the role that you're providing? The last tip, and this is a biggie, so I'll spend a bit of time on this, is each of us is faced throughout our careers with proposals or ideas where we just want to say no. I call this constructive feedback, and I would encourage us to replace the no with yes and. Yes and is actually a whole concept whereby the word yes is something that the other person hears first. When someone hears the word yes, you may think, oh, they may think I'm agreeing with them, but what in fact you're doing is acknowledging that you've actually heard the other person, which is going back to that empathetic language example I talked about, the calm, civil tone. It's okay to say yes because you're simply acknowledging that you've heard the other person. If you follow that yes with and, this signals that you're building rapport and being creative with the other person. Now, I'm not saying there are times where you will not need to say no. There are definite times to say no. These are in more very defined circumstances, such as when you're having a discussion on setting boundaries. In most circumstances, I would say yes and fits the most. Um, Now, some of this philosophy, I first started my journey I don't know if any of you have heard the term managing up, but it was coined in an article by the Harvard Business Review, a distinguished business magazine. And what it essentially means is you need to create value for the people that you're reporting to and the entire organization. What it does not mean is it does not mean that you intrude on your manager's schedule to have your ideas forcefully heard and accepted. Secondly, learning to understand and prioritize your manager's goals and ideas, developing relationships, and adapting your work patterns and your communication styles to that of your management team is really critical. One tip I always had with my manager was I would ask any new manager for their top three priorities on any given day that they were willing to wipe their desk clean and focus on. This gives you, in a nutshell, what is top of mind for your management. I always believed in giving proactive, honest, and transparent updates to my manager. Managers always appreciate when you are anticipating and not just reacting to their needs. Um, Needing to align and realign goals as needed. Managing expectations is also important. Sometimes you need to clarify timelines. You need to report delays. And it's also important to learn the art of what I call reframe, which is taking a result and reframing it towards a positive perspective. Seeking regular feedback, and finally navigating challenges constructively by leveraging mentoring as a key resource. So that's all encapsulated in my tips to thrive as a leader. I know I gave you a lot. Again, I would summarize it as you are part of a greater team when you recognize that you're working together towards a common cause and you're supporting each other and recognizing each other's efforts. Secondly, you're actually a leader when you're striving to create something new for your team and for your organization to improve results. And lastly, learning to manage up and across to your peers and to your management. Saying yes and is one key example. There are many others that I've shared with you as well, which is all encapsulated in the term managing up. So again, I know I gave you a lot, and maybe I'm trying to pack all 30 years in this presentation. But again, I'm trying to keep it very brief and very focused. But if you do have any comments or feedback, I'll just take a pause and ask Sandra if there's anything I need to comment on in the chat.
Oh, I just wrote that um my favorite thing that you mentioned right now is like knowing your boss's three priorities. I definitely use that as my North Star when I go into conversations with her. Sometimes I get away from it myself, but I think that that's kind of always something to keep at the back of your head. But I did want to open it up and see if there's if anyone else had any things that they liked that they want to use moving forward.
And if not, we can always leave it to the Q&A portion at the end too. Just wanted to make sure if there was a burning issue that we address it right away. Or
Nothing yet.
okay, perfect. All right, so moving on to self-care practices. So again, I could talk about many practices that I've employed over the years, and some of them I've included in the resources slide later, but I wanted to focus on these four. The first one, I'm not sure how many of you have heard of visualization or practice visualization. I would be curious for those of you who wish to just feel free to start commenting in the chat. You know, have you used visualization, yes or no? This was a technique I learned early on when I became a supervisor many years ago in a training course. And again, it's borrowed from the athletic world. So, physical sports athletes focus on visualizing a desired outcome, such as winning a race, scoring a home run in baseball. I don't know if you caught that reference, but in Toronto, we're really rooting for the Toronto Blue Jays tonight. Go Jays, go. Or achieving a personal best. And visualization in the professional world can actually work as well. I've done it, I've learned it, I've practiced it, and it's quite an amazing skill. It's also known as mental imagery or mental rehearsal. It can work well in any setting. For example, right before an important meeting or presentation or interview. It's the process of using your imagination to simulate experiences or situations, often with the intention of achieving a desired outcome. It's a powerful cognitive technique. It supports self care by regulating the mind and the emotions. And it's also effective at reducing stress, interrupting negative thoughts, clarifying your thoughts, and building confidence. So again, if anyone has tried visualization in any realm, I'd be curious to know. The second self-care practice is teamwork and delegation. Effective teamwork prevents burnout, it encourages healthy boundaries, it builds support systems, and also reduces stress. Teamwork and delegating tasks mindfully to yourself and to others often involves, firstly, back to that teamwork mentality, getting to know your teammates' strengths, preferences, and talents. Often, we can go for a long time without even knowing what our neighbor at work is really good at. Secondly, letting go enough control so that each of us can develop each other's talents and maybe give up something that we're used to doing so that we can learn something new and then have someone else develop that talent as well. And then thirdly, part of proper teamwork and delegation involves assigning work and tasks in a way that helps to develop not only your skills and strengths, but also your teammates' skills and strengths. It, if done properly, it can be a beautiful thing. The third self-care practice would be mindfulness. Mindfulness, just to give you an example, I'll give you a simple self-guided mindfulness practice that you can try out maybe tomorrow or later if you go outside. It's helped me to feel grounded and present. So what you do is you close your eyes, you're outdoors, and you just try to name 5 sounds that you hear. And believe it or not, it's a lot harder than it sounds. Usually I'm good at identifying the first three, and then I really have to pay attention to name all 5. But I can usually do it if I really focus. And what this actually does, it helps shift your attention outward, which can be helpful when the mind feels busy and there's a lot of mental chatter going on, or you're feeling overwhelmed. The second aspect to mindfulness, I've also benefited in a much deeper way from mindfulness meditations that have been guided by professionals who are certified meditation teachers as well as yoga instructors. These professionals help you to reach a deeper level of mindfulness meditation that can help when you want to do a deeper dive. Over time, being present and practicing mindfulness in whether it's a self-guided or through a professional has helped reduce feelings of stress, increase satisfaction with close relationships, and improved my physical and mental health. The last self-care practice I'd like to focus on is for the past 15 years in a professional setting, I've been journaling. And yes, with pen and paper, I've journaled in other fashion as well, typed it out, etc. Um, And from a professional aspect, you're probably wondering, what does this do? There is a lot of evidence that shows that journaling in the professional world can help as a leader to reflect on both achievements and lessons learned with authenticity. What I do is I write it all down after a project is completed, or maybe an initiative has been done, or maybe something that should have been done didn't get done. I write it all down, whether it's good or bad, how I got there, and I try to list a concrete positive next step towards my own continuous learning and development. You can also do this as a team, but I think it starts with the self first. So I'll pause there in case there's anything, if anyone has tried any of these techniques in the chat, has mentioned any of these in the chat.
Carla
Anyone tried?
mentioned yes, Carla mentioned she used the visualization technique and she says it's wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you, Carla. Okay, moving on to creating a strong support system. So I'm just going to start with my colleagues at work in a professional setting. Just to give you an example, in the past, I had to go through a transition in my professional world, and my new organization actively fostered relationships among us as colleagues through various ways. We had a peer forum, we had committees, we were often assigned to co-lead on projects. And I learned through that there's times when you need to partner with colleagues and you cannot do it alone on key initiatives. And then sometimes you just need to be a listener and a sounding board to a colleague. I learned that connection and working together and collaborating with colleagues is often more efficient on a variety of topics such as human resources, physical property issues, or strategic initiatives such as leading a client experience strategy. Eventually, I proactively sought to maximize collegial relationships and build a common spirit in the members of this group. And this helped to inspire enthusiasm, increased commitment, and we had a strong cohesion. I'm going to also list here friends. Often we forget that our friends are our trusting safe space. They've known our friends know us most of our lives, and surprisingly, we don't often turn to our friends to give us feedback, but they can often be a great source of perspective, and also can be your cheering squad in good times and in bad. They can also be a great sounding board for strategic ideas. And lastly, family. Family is an often underestimated source of support throughout our careers because, again, they can help with our work life harmony, and they can also give us feedback. Throughout all my leadership roles, I've had to balance my roles as being a mom, a wife, a daughter. I've had to learn to prioritize what is important versus what is urgent. So I would not give up or miss out on the important milestones in my family or my professional life. My achievements would not have been possible without having a supportive family unit. And now I always say that the real litmus test is that my daughter is all grown up and tells me what to do and tells me how to do things and stay current and reverse mentors me. So that's how I know that I had that family support when that return on investment comes later in your life. You never want to hear that, again, back to the B minus versus the A. That's one of those costs that you don't want to give up in order to achieve some unrealistic form of perfectionism. Learning to accept and strive for excellence can mean balancing all of these things, having conversations with your manager, and having those difficult conversations with your manager in a way that you get buy-in and support right from the beginning. It is possible. All right, moving on to some birch tree wisdom, I call it. So again, back to our birch tree. Birch trees are pioneer species. And just like entrepreneurs, birch trees create something new where nothing existed. They can adapt and thrive in harsh climates or soil, just like entrepreneurs in changing, uncertain circumstances. This tree grows so rapidly, similar to how entrepreneurs need to have a growth mindset, strong yet flexible, open to fresh starts. And each entrepreneur's idea is like a birch tree's new season of growth. What does this look like? First of all, you need to know your purpose and passion. You need to grow amidst the reality of your circumstances. You need to renew and regenerate, just like the birch tree, by creating something new for an improved future. To hone this spirit, what do you need to do? Well, I would say there's a few key elements. First, you need to be curious. You need to identify opportunities to be innovative within your sphere of influence and based on client needs. Where's the gap and where can you fill it? You need to be creative in obtaining the necessary resources. Resources don't drop into entrepreneurs' laps. And again, even employees who want to sell an idea for improvement need to be creative in how they obtain the necessary support and resources. Hold a safe space for yourself and others to learn from setbacks related to taking risks as an entrepreneur. Trial and error is the norm. Just like a scientist conducts experiments, you learn more from failure as an entrepreneur than from success. Create plans and priorities that can be adaptable to deal with change in an environment of uncertainty. You need to be a good planner. And again, develop some of those healthy habits we talked about in the previous slide. And one of those would be, I would say, joining or creating a professional network for support, and find a mentor through the Generations in Motion program. Here are the resources slide, which hopefully Sandra can share in a shareable way for all of you. And it includes some of my favorite tools, books, the Clifton Strengths Assessment, that's to help you figure out your strengths. Getting things done is really good at the interest-based negotiation. Pure Life Healing, guided meditation. I mentioned having a professional guided meditation. That's an excellent one. And focus inspired journaling using the 5221 method is a great resource as well. So hopefully you can delve into some of those. All right, a quick pulse check as we are nearing the end of the formal part of the presentation before Q's and A's. What content was the most valuable part for you personally for today's workshop? And again, would you say that handling difficult conversations was the most valuable for you, building resilience? Now that you've heard some of the content, tips to thrive as a leader, self-care practices, creating a strong social support system, or all of the above. And you can feel free to put the letter. I just think that while you're doing that, I wanted to thank you for your time, focus, and engagement today. Your contributions and attendance today have helped this to be a dynamic session. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the results of what has impacted you today the most, so that it can not only be a reminder that value can look different for everyone, but it would help mothers to daughters to understand what resonated to create for future workshops as well.
All right, let's see what we got here. We have F, all of the above. We have, oops, building resilience and wisdom section. And E is creating strong and social support system, creating a strong social support system. And then B and C, building resilience and to thrive as a leader. And another, all of the above. Anna, did you want to open it up to questions? See if anybody has any?
Yes, absolutely. Questions and answers. Okay, I'm going to right on cue. It's like you read my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to maybe stop sharing and hopefully can get back onto the screen. Let's see if I can do that. I don't know, might require some technical stop share. Okay.
Awesome. And so, well, first and foremost, thank you for presenting. That was amazing. You have really great presentation. Like, you make everybody feel comfortable and calm. I don't know if anybody else felt that way, but going through the entire presentation, it felt so calming listening to you. Did anyone have any questions? We got the start.
I was that crystal clear, eh? I do see now, I can see the chat now. So that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm open to, if anyone wants a clarification, you want to dig deeper, or if you're curious about something I've said or want me to explain a little bit further, please feel free to ask away. I do feel like the chat really did help us to kind of address some things as we went along. So that was awesome. Hopefully, this will help you in your professional worlds. I don't know what each of you does, but I do recognize some of the names. So thank you so much for those of you that I do recognize, and for those of you that I don't know. Looking forward to engaging with you perhaps in the future. Um, Engagement is the way to bring content to life. Content is just information unless it's brought real by, with all of you. So, okay, I do
Oh,
see a question.
so the question is from Adiola. Thank you, Adiola. How do you handle if your boss's priorities change often? How do you keep your head up?
That's a great question, and I can only tell you how I used to try to do that. So, a couple ways. The first is I would call the big picture. So, when you're working in any realm, it's really important to always be aware of your organization's bigger picture, and these are usually published documents, media releases, understanding who the key players are in your organization, and reading the news, and you're both internally and externally for your organization. That's sort of what I call keeping your head up on the big picture. You almost need to be one step ahead, so that when my manager would bring something up to me, I would say, oh yes, I am aware of that because I read it in the communication release, or I read about it in the news, or I started reading news with an eye to my organization's interests. And I would actually so I stopped reading the news for my own interest actually, and I started reading it to try to hone in on what my organization was focused on. And so that was big picture. The small picture, what I would be more in control with, is having regular bilateral conversations with my manager. So often, I would say once every 2 weeks, I would give my updates, and then my boss would share with me what was on their mind. So that usually what was on their mind helped inform, the next 2 weeks ahead. So that really, really helped. And there's not a lot of managers that will proactively say, hey, you want to meet every 2 weeks. They're very busy. But if you can again find a way to negotiate that with your manager or their assistant, to say, I would like some one-on-one time, as much time as often as that person is able to give me, and that I will bring to the table my updates, and then hopefully in return what you'll get is their updated priorities. Those are just two ways. There's many other ways, but I would say those were my top two: big picture, reading and being anticipating what's going on in your organization, and then secondly, having a really close communication on a recurring basis, and keeping good notes, so that you know always where your manager's head is at. My manager's priorities would change all the time, but you'll be surprised that there are certain core priorities that never change. So yeah, just as Sandra and I both said, if you simply ask on any given day, what would you clear your desk and drop just to focus on one, two, and three? And you'd be surprised those priorities would not change. Good, great question, Adiola. Okay, we have a few minutes. Oh, you're welcome. So I was crystal clear. No one needs me to be, no one's going to challenge anything I said. everything I said was my came from personal, a hard-won experience. So I mean, that would be tough, but certainly if I can help anyone prevent, that would be great too. Yes,
Oh yeah.
Fevin. Yes, go ahead, Sandra.
Oh no, I was excited. I saw the same thing you did at the same time. So Fevin, you said for the creating a strong support system section, I was gonna personally add weak ties can also be a strong support system if you can regularly post and ask what you might need or want.
And I'm assuming you mean by that a team is only as strong as their weakest link. I hope I interpret that correctly. I think it's actually extra important to focus in on weak ties, whether that means you need to shore up stronger connection with a stakeholder, whether it's a member of your team that is maybe not aligned, that can make or break any team's success. So thank you, Fevin. Very, very good point. Excellent point. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm thinking back to many instances where we have to support each other, right? Sometimes someone's having a bad day or someone's going through something in their personal lives, and that for some reason they're not showing up. You don't just let your team fail or ignore it. You want to check in and see what's going on. And maybe you need to realign how the team does their work, or maybe you need to realign, who you connect with to supplement that support. Excellent. Good.
I think I have a question that I have a question and then a comment. You had mentioned
Sure.
the yes and one thing my boss told me once was um and always switch out your buts for ands.
Yes.
So anytime anytime you're talking when you want to kind of contradict, I guess, or you feel the need to say
Mm-hmm.
something and say but instead say and so that just really reminded me of exactly what you were saying. So that really
Yeah,
helped me a lot along the way.
I think that's a great point, Sandra, and one that I've espoused as well. Unfortunately, we do live in a society that embraces but. So it's hard to remember sometimes because social media is littered with that word. It's hard to often remember when you're switching to a work context to try to eliminate that word. That word really serves no true purpose other than to build walls in any conversation. So I think that's a really excellent point, Sandra. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think we can go ahead and close out and just say thank you for all of the time that you put into giving us the opportunity to hear all of your wise words and all of the knowledge over the course of your professional career. And I see Francine has jumped on, so I'll give her pass over the mic in a second. I did want to say thank you to everybody who's here to listen to Ana Maria as well. We have about 4 or 5 more workshops going to happen. One will be next week, so we look forward to having you at all of the workshops or as many as you can attend as the months pass. There'll be a lot in October, November, and then I think there's one in December as well. So just wanted to say, oh, do you have any books, materials you would recommend that will help with reframing towards the use of more open-ended questions?
Yes, I can add those to the resources slide, Sandra. I'm not sure how you plan to share that out with the group, but I can
Yes,
certainly tweak that slide and add Nadia's request for resources on that topic.
perfect. Okay. And to that point,
Thank
thank
you,
you for sharing
Nadia.
that. Yeah, thank you, Nadia. Um, after this presentation, we will be sending out the recording. And so I'm hoping that it's recording, and we'll share that as well as the resources and the PowerPoint slide. So those will be coming to you via email. Just to follow up on the updates, we are currently working on the portal. So we're really excited to have the portal go live, ideally by the end of the year. So as we're still working through the technicalities of that, we will be sending things through email. And since I have a couple of you on, also sharing that we will be doing these in PDF forms or docs until we have them on the portal, so that way it's easier, because we found out that Microsoft Office, it gets a little tricky logging in. So we'll be sending those via docs or PDF moving forward to your email. And I'll go ahead and pass it to Francine.
I won't speak much. I just want to say thank you to Anna. Thank you so, so much. This was so great. It was just absorbing, and I just love the engagement. Thank you. Thanks to you, Sandra, as well, for supporting the workshop. It's been a long time coming, and I'm happy to see some familiar faces as well. I know Nadia and some of I know Alethea and people that are also part of our program. So yeah, just really, really grateful. It's time, and I just want to encourage everyone to second the point of Sandra around the workshops that are coming up. We've really spent a lot of time curating these workshops, and we just really want to make sure that you get empowered and inspired by all of this. Anna has spoken a lot of things that I'm still working through, even though I'm leading this organization, but it just really never ends. And I just wanted to recognize that. So again, thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you, Francine. It's been a pleasure working with you in my Happy Met phase. And thank you for the opportunity to be a mentor and other opportunities you've given me to stay connected and doing some positive good, for women everywhere. Thank you so much. You're a true leader.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, everyone, enjoy the rest of your evening. It's 8 p.m.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Go Jays, go.